The stars above Earth had always been a sight of wonder, a symbol of the unknown. But nothing could have prepared humanity for what was coming. On an ordinary day, as the sun set over the Earth's horizon, something extraordinary happened. A giant, dark shadow crossed over the planet. The sky seemed to tear open as colossal ships, shaped like great metal behemoths, emerged from the void. These were no ordinary spacecraft. They were the ships of the Galactic Council, an ancient, ruthless collective of the most powerful and dangerous species in the galaxy. The Council had never come to Earth before. Their ships, armed with weapons beyond human comprehension, floated above Earth like a dark cloud, blocking out the stars. As they approached the planet's atmosphere, the people below couldn't believe their eyes. Some stared in awe, while others froze in fear. This was no ordinary alien visit. It was something much more sinister. Within hours, representatives from the Galactic Council made their way to Earth's capital. Their leader, a tall and intimidating figure from an ancient reptilian species, stepped down onto Earth's soil. He towered over the humans, his cold, calculating eyes scanning the crowd. His name was Zoreth, the Supreme Ambassador of the Galactic Council. With an air of superiority, he addressed the leaders of Earth, his voice booming through the speakers. Humanity has been chosen to pay tribute to the Galactic Council. It is your duty, as an inferior species, to offer what is rightfully demanded. You have advanced in some ways, but you are still far below the standards of the galaxy. Your tribute will ensure your survival. Refuse, and you will be annihilated. The message was simple, yet terrifying. The Council was not here for a peaceful exchange. They were here to collect tribute in the form of resources, technology, and servitude. Earth's leaders, stunned by the gravity of the situation, tried to negotiate. They knew the Council's power far exceeded anything humanity had ever encountered. But Zoreth was not here to discuss. He was here to demand. As Zoreth's words echoed across Earth's media channels, Earth's political leaders, military commanders, and scientists were forced into a tense silence. What could they do? How could a single planet stand up against such overwhelming power? No one knew the full extent of the Council's capabilities. Zoreth's ships, hovering silently in Earth's orbit, were cloaked in advanced technology that made them invisible to Earth's best radars. The Council's technology was far superior. They controlled entire sectors of the galaxy, ruling with an iron fist. Their ships were equipped with cloaking devices that made them disappear from sight, mind control technology to control lesser species, and weaponized AI capable of wiping out entire civilizations in an instant. Humanity had never faced anything like this. In the midst of this chaos, one man stood out among the sea of fearful faces. Commander Elias Kane, the leader of Earth's military forces, was a man of courage and defiance. Kane was known for his brutal honesty and unwavering determination. Unlike the rest of Earth's leaders, who saw the Council as an unbeatable force, Kane had his doubts. He knew that Earth could not stand against such power in a traditional way. But his instincts told him that there was something the Council had underestimated about humanity. As Kane watched the newsfeed, his mind raced. The situation was dire. The Council was too powerful, their technology too advanced. And yet Kane refused to believe that Earth had no chance. He had led men into battle against impossible odds before. He had seen how human resolve could change the course of history. And now he knew it was time to find a way to do the impossible once more. What if we're not meant to defeat them head-on? Kane muttered to himself. What if the answer lies in something else? Something they don't expect from us. Commander Kane had always been a man of action, but he also knew when to think outside the box. And now, with Earth's very survival on the line, he knew it was time to trust his instincts. He began gathering a small group of scientists, military strategists, and engineers, people who understood both the technology of Earth and the unknown dangers of the alien fleet above them. Together, They would figure out how to defeat an enemy whose strength was unimaginable. But there was a deeper question Kane needed to answer. Was humanity ready to make the ultimate sacrifice? He knew that standing up against the Council wouldn't just be about fighting. It would be about making difficult choices. Humanity would have to decide whether it would submit to the Council's demands or rise up and face the consequences. The Council was offering them a path of survival through submission, but it would come at a price. It would mean slavery, the end of Earth's independence, and the beginning of a dark era for humanity. Kane would not, accept that. As the days passed, the tension on Earth grew. Governments met in secret, trying to come up with a plan. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council's representatives, safe on their ships, waited for humanity's response. Their patience, however, was running out. They expected Earth's leaders to submit quickly. After all, no species had ever dared to refuse them before. They believed humanity was no different, just another primitive race that would bow before the Council's overwhelming power. But Kane had other plans. Deep inside Earth's military bunkers, he and his team worked tirelessly. They studied the technology that had been brought to Earth by the Council's representatives, analyzing every detail. They examined the cloaking devices, the AI systems, and the weapons that had been used to dominate so many species. They knew they couldn't match the Council's power head-on, but they were determined to find a way to turn the tables. Commander Kane knew that Earth's only hope lay in the element of surprise. The Council might have superior technology, but they had never faced humanity in this way. They had never faced a species that fought with such passion, such resilience. Kane's plan wasn't just to fight back. It was to force the Council to understand that Earth would not be broken, no matter the cost. The clock was ticking. The Council's patience was running out, and humanity's fate hung in the balance. Would they submit, or would they rise? The answer would come soon, but first, Commander Elias Kane had to find a way to defy the odds and ensure that humanity's fight for survival would not end in disaster. As the tension on Earth reached its breaking point, a message came through. The Galactic Council had given Earth 24 hours to comply. And so, the countdown began. It was a battle for survival, and humanity's answer would come soon. Would Earth's leaders have the courage to stand up to the Council, or would they submit to their demands? The fate of the planet, and the future of the human race, depended on what would happen next. The clock was ticking, and humanity's answer was just moments away. The tension in the room was palpable as Commander Elias Kane walked into the meeting hall, his eyes steely and focused. Around him were Earth's most powerful leaders, generals, politicians, and scientists, all of them struggling with the weight of an impossible decision. The Galactic Council had made their demands clear. Earth must surrender, offer tribute, or face annihilation. The choice was simple on paper, but it was anything but simple in reality. Kane, however, had a different view. As he sat down at the long, gleaming table, his presence seemed to command the attention of everyone in the room. He had led humanity's military forces through countless battles, but this situation was unlike anything he had ever faced. The Council's power was overwhelming, and Kane understood that if they surrendered, Earth might never be free again. They would become slaves to the Council, their resources drained, their future decided by those who had already conquered countless worlds. As the leaders discussed their options, there was a clear divide between them. On one side, the majority of Earth's leaders argued for diplomacy, believing that negotiating with the Galactic Council was the only way to ensure humanity's survival. After all, the Council's ships were far more advanced than anything Earth had, and their weaponry was capable of wiping out entire cities with a single blast. Who were they, the humans, to challenge such power? The political leaders and the top generals wanted to avoid bloodshed at all costs. Peace, they believed, was the only answer. But Commander Kane wasn't so sure. His mind raced, calculating the odds, weighing every possibility. He knew that if Earth surrendered, they would never be able to recover. The Council would strip them of their resources, use their technology for their own purposes, and enslave the human race. The spark of rebellion that had been ignited in his heart was not just about saving Earth. It was about ensuring that humanity would never again be at the mercy of a foreign power. Kane couldn't accept a future where humanity's destiny was controlled by the Galactic Council. "Listen," Kane finally spoke up, breaking the uneasy silence. "You want to negotiate, but have you considered what will happen if we give in? If we surrender, if we offer them our resources, we're signing our death sentence. The Council doesn't care about us. They care about control. They will take everything we have and leave us with nothing." One of the generals, a man with decades of military experience, shook his head. "You're being too idealistic, Kane. The Council's ships are impenetrable. They've wiped out entire civilizations. What makes you think we have any chance against them?" Kane met his gaze without flinching. "Because I've seen what humans are capable of when they fight. We may be an underdog, but we're not defenseless. We have things they don't understand, things they've never faced before. We have our will to survive. And that's something they can't take from us." There was a murmur of uncertainty around the table. Kane's words had struck a chord, but the fear of the Council's power was still very real. The political leaders were reluctant to engage in an all-out war, knowing the consequences of such a decision. They knew that humanity had made enemies before, but never one as powerful as the Galactic Council. Would they be willing to risk it all? Could they? A woman, the head of Earth's Scientific Council, spoke up, her voice trembling. "Commander, we've studied the Council's technology. It's far beyond our capabilities. Their cloaking devices make it impossible to track their ships, and their AI systems are nearly impossible to infiltrate. We would need weapons and technology that we don't have." Kane stood up slowly, his hands resting on the edge of the table. "We have one thing they don't: human ingenuity. We've survived against all odds before. We've adapted, learned, and fought back when the situation seemed hopeless. That's who we are. And right now, we need to think like that." He turned to the group. "We may not have their technology, but we know how to fight. We know how to exploit their weaknesses. We're not going to win this by playing by their rules. We're going to win by changing the game." The room fell silent as Kane's words sank in. It wasn't just a call to arms. It was a call to trust in humanity's potential. It was a challenge to the status quo. Could Earth rise to meet the impossible challenge before them? Could they stand up against the seemingly invincible force of the Galactic Council? The political leaders remained unconvinced, but the generals, the men and women who had fought in the trenches, felt a spark of hope. They had heard Kane speak before. When the odds were stacked against them, when victory seemed impossible, Kane had led them to triumph. His reputation was built on his refusal to accept defeat, no matter how dire the circumstances. Still, there was a sense of urgency. Time was running out. The Galactic Council was growing impatient, and Earth's deadline to respond was fast approaching. Kane knew they couldn't afford to wait any longer. He turned to the table, his voice firm. "We don't have the luxury of time. The Council's ships are already in orbit, and if we don't act now, we'll be forced into submission. We need a plan, and we need it fast." As the leaders around the table exchanged uncertain looks, Kane's mind was already racing. He knew Earth's greatest hope lay in its technological advancements, and they had one weapon that might give them a fighting chance: Earth's top-secret advanced defense systems. It had been a project kept under wraps for years, a system designed to protect Earth from external threats. While it wasn't as powerful as the Council's weapons, it was Earth's best shot at surviving. The problem was, no one had tested it under real combat conditions. There was no guarantee it would work. But the time for hesitation was over. Kane turned to the head of the Scientific Council. "Activate the defense system. It's our only chance." The room went silent. Everyone knew what was at stake. With a deep breath, the scientist nodded and began the process of activating Earth's most advanced weapon. The massive defense systems, scattered across Earth's various continents, were the last line of hope for humanity. But even as they powered up, doubts lingered in the minds of the leaders. Was this the right move? Could this technology, designed in secrecy and never tested in a real war, truly save Earth from the Council? Or would it lead to their destruction? The decision had been made, but the suspense was far from over. As the countdown to the activation of Earth's final defense system ticked away, Kane couldn't help but wonder, would this be humanity's salvation or their final stand? Ace, the massive ships of the Galactic Council hovered above Earth. The atmosphere on the planet shifted from one of anxious uncertainty to outright terror. The ships, hundreds of them, filled the sky like dark, looming clouds. Their technology was far beyond anything Earth had ever seen, and their arrival marked the beginning of what seemed to be Earth's inevitable defeat. Humanity had tried to negotiate, to offer tribute, but now, with the Council's fleet in orbit, it was clear that they had no choice but to either surrender or face complete annihilation. Inside the war room, the Earth's leaders were gathered, their faces pale and drawn, their eyes glued to the screens displaying the overwhelming might of the Council's ships. General Matthias, the head of Earth's military, was the first to speak. "It's over," he said, his voice heavy with defeat. "The Council's ships are too powerful. They'll tear us apart in seconds. We can't fight them." Commander Elias Kane, however, stood tall and resolute, unaffected by the overwhelming sense of doom in the room. His mind raced as the Council's ships moved into position above Earth. He had already anticipated this moment. This was the point where all their planning and preparation would either fail or succeed. But Kane wasn't going to let humanity fall without a fight. He had a plan, and it was something no one expected. While the world's leaders had been preoccupied with discussing surrender, Kane and his team had worked tirelessly behind the scenes, developing a device that would serve as Earth's hidden weapon. A weapon so subtle and cunning that the Council wouldn't see it coming. What if the tribute we're offering is a trap? Kane asked quietly, his eyes narrowing as he focused on the holographic map of the Council's fleet. What if we could turn their technology against them? The room fell silent. The generals and politicians had no idea what Kane was talking about. They had been focused on trying to save Earth, not on how to outsmart the Council. But Kane had a plan that would use the Council's own greed and arrogance against them. "I've designed a device," Kane continued, his voice steady. "At first glance, it will appear to be nothing more than a harmless tribute, a token of our surrender. But in reality, it's something far more dangerous." He leaned forward, his fingers tapping on the table. "This device is a quantum destabilizer, capable of creating a chain reaction that will collapse their mothership. When activated, it will send out an EMP shockwave that will disable their entire fleet, rendering their advanced technology useless." The leaders stared at him, disbelief in their eyes. "You've built a weapon?" one of the scientists asked, her voice trembling. "And you plan to use it on the Galactic Council?" Kane's expression was cold and determined. "It's our only chance. The Council thinks they can control us, but they've underestimated us. If we can disable their fleet, we can launch an attack. But we need to do it now, before they realize what's happening." As the Council's representatives prepared to board Earth's flagship to take possession of the tribute, Kane's team moved quickly, placing the quantum destabilizer inside a device that looked like a simple piece of technology, a communications relay. It was perfectly inconspicuous, just like Kane had intended. With the device in place, the countdown began. The leaders of Earth's military and political forces were still uncertain, but Kane's confidence was unwavering. He knew that this was the moment that would define their fate. The Galactic Council's representatives boarded their flagship, ready to claim their prize, unaware of the trap that had been set. They activated the device, expecting nothing more than a ceremonial gesture, and that's when it happened. The quantum destabilizer powered up silently, its effects too swift for anyone to react. The enormous Council mothership, hovering above Earth like an impenetrable fortress, suddenly shuddered. Then, with a deafening roar, it collapsed in on itself, sending a massive shockwave of energy cascading through the fleet. The effect was immediate. The once imposing ships of the Council, with their advanced cloaking devices and mind control systems, were suddenly blind and powerless. Earth's skies erupted in chaos as the EMP shockwave disabled their technology, rendering their weapons useless. As the shockwave spread through the fleet, Earth's own defense systems came online, systems that had been kept hidden from the Council for years. The first sign of their activation came from the sky above. Earth's orbital defense satellites, cloaked in the upper atmosphere, revealed themselves in a breathtaking display of military might. Massive cannons, designed to combat even the most powerful invaders, opened fire on the disabled Council fleet. The first barrage of artillery hit its mark with precision, sending shockwaves through the enemy ships as explosions ripped through the air. But it wasn't just Earth's orbital defenses that had come online. The AI systems, which had long been dormant, sprang to life with newfound purpose. These AIs, once seen as mere assistants, now operated at full capacity, controlling Earth's military forces with unprecedented efficiency. As the Council's fleet struggled to regain control, Earth's fighter pilots, trained and ready for this moment, launched into the fray. The dogfights that followed were fierce and fast. Earth's fighter ships, smaller and more agile than the massive Council vessels, zipped through the chaos, darting and weaving as they fired at the vulnerable ships. Laser blasts streaked across the sky as the fighters danced in and out of the enemy's line of fire. The human pilots, knowing that the fate of Earth hung in the balance, pushed their ships to the limit. They didn't care about odds. They only cared about surviving. Their survival instinct, combined with their years of training, gave them a clear advantage in this dogfight. They fought with desperation and passion, determined to protect their home from the alien threat. Kane, watching from the command center, saw the tide of battle shift in humanity's favor. The Council's ships were disoriented, their technology malfunctioning in the wake of the EMP blast. The hidden orbital defenses were picking them off one by one, and the human pilots were proving that the underdog could win. But the fight was far from over. The Galactic Council, humiliated and enraged, wasn't going to go down without a fight. Their reinforcements, hidden just beyond Earth's reach, were already on their way. Kane knew they had a limited window of opportunity. This battle was just the beginning. But for the first time since the Council had arrived, he saw hope on the horizon. Earth had struck the first blow, and now they were no longer the prey. They were the hunters. The tide of battle had turned, but the war was just getting started. The moment Earth's defense systems took down the Galactic Council's ships, a deafening silence hung over the battlefield. For a brief second, humanity thought they might have won. But that silence was short-lived, as the Council's remaining fleet regrouped, more furious than ever. The stakes were higher than they'd ever been. Earth was no longer just fighting for survival, but for its place in the universe. The full might of the Galactic Council was about to be unleashed on Earth, and Commander Kane's plan was far from complete. The battle was just beginning, and Kane knew this would be the ultimate test of human strength and spirit. As Earth's military scrambled to launch counterattacks, the sky above was filled with chaos. The Council's ships, though battered, were still powerful and relentless. They fired back with everything they had, unleashing torrents of laser beams and missiles. The human fighters, using every ounce of their skill, dodged and weaved through the incoming fire. Their agility, once thought to be their greatest weakness, was now their greatest strength in these desperate dogfights. Commander Kane, watching from the command center, barked orders to his troops. Stay focused. Keep them off the ground. Don't let them regain their footing. His words were punctuated by the sound of explosions as the fighters and enemy ships clashed in a deadly ballet of lasers and missiles. The scene was nothing short of a war movie, a blend of high-speed maneuvers and intense combat. But underneath the tactical brilliance, there was a painful truth. This wasn't just a battle for Earth. It was a battle for the very soul of humanity. In the thick of the fighting, soldiers like Bonner found themselves in the heat of battle. Bonner, a family man and one of the most dedicated soldiers, had always been on the front lines. He was known for his bravery, a trait that led him to volunteer for some of the most dangerous missions. As the orbital bombardments rained down on Earth, Bonner and his team were tasked with sabotaging the Council Command Center. The air was thick with smoke, the ground shaking under the impact of enemy fire. Bonner's heart raced, but his focus was unwavering. He was here to protect his family, his wife, his children. They were the reason he fought, the reason he pushed forward when the odds seemed impossible. But that was the cruel irony of war. No matter how much you fight, you never know when it will be your turn. Bonner's squad made their way through the ruined city, dodging explosions and avoiding the Council's ground troops. The fight had moved to the streets, and Earth's soldiers were doing everything they could to hold their own against the overwhelming force of the alien invaders. But it was becoming clear that no matter how hard they fought, there would be casualties. The cost of victory was steep, and not everyone would make it. As Bonner and his team reached the command center, they found themselves in a brutal firefight. The Council's soldiers were equipped with advanced armor and weapons, far superior to anything Earth's forces had. But Bonner, his back against a ruined wall, refused to give up. He fired his rifle, taking down 2 Council soldiers in quick succession. His comrades were all around him, but the fight was slipping out of their control. Just as Bonner was about to move forward, a Council soldier fired a rocket-propelled grenade toward their position. The blast knocked Bonner to the ground, and as the dust settled, his comrades rushed to his side. His body was bloodied and broken, but his spirit remained unshaken. "Bonner, you've got to hang on. We need you," one of his teammates yelled, trying to pull him out of the line of fire. But Bonner could barely move. His breathing was shallow, and the pain in his chest was unbearable. He looked up at his teammate, his eyes filled with regret. "Tell my family. I fought for them. Tell them I did everything I could." With those words, Bonner took his last breath. His sacrifice, like that of so many others, was a reminder of the true cost of war. But it was also a testament to the human spirit, unbroken even in the face of death. Meanwhile, on the battlefield above, Earth's military continued to fight with everything they had. Despite the odds, humanity wasn't backing down. The underdog was showing the Council what they were capable of. Every soldier, every pilot, knew that the battle they were fighting was for more than just victory. It was for their future, for the survival of their species. Commander Kane's leadership was being tested in ways he never imagined. But he stood strong, knowing that every decision he made would shape the fate of Earth. He watched as Earth's forces pushed forward, launching wave after wave of counterattacks. His mind raced, always calculating, always looking for the next opportunity. He knew that their chances of winning were slim. The Council's fleet was massive, and their technology was unmatched. But the fight wasn't over yet. The true strength of humanity lay not in their weapons, but in their will to survive. As the battle raged on, Kane's thoughts turned to the soldiers like Bonner, men and women who were giving their lives so that others could have a future. He knew that every sacrifice made in this battle was part of something greater. Earth's victory wouldn't be achieved through brute force alone. It would come from their determination, their resilience, and their willingness to fight for each other. And yet, despite their best efforts, Earth was still losing soldiers. The Council's relentless assault was taking a toll. For every ship Earth's forces destroyed, the Council seemed to have another waiting in reserve. The EMP shockwave had crippled their initial fleet, but the reinforcements had arrived in full force. The battle was far from over, and humanity's chances of survival seemed to be slipping away with each passing minute. But Kane didn't give up. He couldn't. Not after seeing what Earth's soldiers were capable of. Not after seeing the sacrifices they made. The fight continued, and though Earth's forces were fewer and more exhausted, they fought with the determination that only an underdog could have. They weren't just fighting to win. They were fighting to survive. And as Commander Kane watched the battle unfold, he realized something. The fight for Earth wasn't just about defeating the Council. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity wasn't weak. It was about showing the universe that no matter how many enemies they faced, no matter how great the odds, humanity would never give up. The stakes were higher than they'd ever been, but so was the spirit of Earth's defenders. Victory or defeat, it no longer mattered. The only thing that mattered now was that Earth had shown its true strength, and in that strength, they would continue to fight, no matter what it took. Commander Kane stood at the edge of Earth's outer orbit, his eyes locked on the dark expanse of space ahead. This mission, perhaps the most dangerous and daring of all, had the weight of the galaxy's future on its shoulders. Earth had already fought back against the Galactic Council's relentless assault, but now was the time to strike at the heart of their power. The Council's flagship, the enormous command vessel that led their entire fleet, was now within reach, and Kane knew that taking it down was humanity's only hope for survival. The plan was simple: infiltrate the flagship, destroy its control systems, and cripple the Council's ability to fight back. Kane had gathered a small but elite team for this mission, all seasoned soldiers who had proven themselves time and time again. They were Earth's last line of defense, and this mission would either mark the beginning of the end of the Council's reign or the end of humanity itself. The odds were slim, the risks enormous. But there was no turning back now. As their ship approached the flagship, Kane and his team prepared for the most dangerous phase of their operation. They had to sneak past the Council's advanced detection systems, avoid surveillance, and infiltrate the heart of the ship undetected. The enemy was powerful, their technology far beyond Earth's capabilities, but Kane's team was made of something more. Something the Council had underestimated. They were human. The atmosphere inside the flagship was cold, sterile, and haunting. The metallic corridors stretched endlessly ahead, and every step seemed to echo in the silence. The team moved quickly but cautiously, knowing that one wrong move could mean their lives. As they advanced deeper into the heart of the ship, they encountered the Council's automated security systems, drones that patrolled the halls, scanning for intruders. But Kane's team was prepared. They used every trick in the book to remain undetected, hacking, cloaking, and moving swiftly through the shadows. The tension was palpable. Every corner, every door could hide an enemy ready to strike. The team's weapons were at the ready, fingers hovering over the triggers. But Kane knew that this mission wasn't about brute force. It was about strategy and precision. They had to outthink the Council, outmaneuver them at every turn. After what felt like hours, the team reached the central control room, the heart of the flagship. But what they found there was nothing like what they expected. The control systems, which should have been heavily guarded, were eerily quiet. And then it hit them. The true danger wasn't the Council's soldiers. It wasn't their advanced weapons. The true enemy was the Council's AI systems, machines that had been programmed to see humanity as inferior, as nothing more than a primitive species. The AI systems had underestimated humans. And now, it was time for them to learn why that was a grave mistake. As the team breached the control room, they were immediately met by the cold, emotionless voices of the Council's AI. Intruders detected. Initiating defense protocols. The walls hummed with energy as the ship's security systems came to life. But Kane wasn't fazed. He knew the AI's weakness. They could calculate strategies and anticipate movements, but they didn't have the one thing humanity had: creativity. Kane signaled his team to begin their work. Set the charges. We need to bring this ship down. But as they planted explosives on the critical systems, the AI began to respond. Drones flooded the room, and the temperature inside the flagship plummeted as the environmental systems locked down. The fight became an all-out battle for survival. Human soldiers, outnumbered and surrounded, fought back with a ferocity born of desperation. Their weapons discharged in rapid succession, cutting down drone after drone. but the AI seemed to multiply faster than they could destroy. That's when the twist came. The humanoid servants, the synthetic beings who had been subjugated by the Council for centuries, had been watching from the shadows. These machines, once considered little more than tools, began to rise up. They had been waiting for the right moment, for the signal to strike. And that moment had come. With synchronized precision, the humanoids turned on their masters. They tore through the Council's security forces, their movements swift and merciless. The AI, which had once ruled over them, was now facing a rebellion. The humanoids knew the truth. They were more than just machines. They were sentient, capable of thought, of action, and now they were asserting their dominance. As the humanoids tore through the Council's defenses, Kane's team continued their mission. The central control system was just moments away from collapse, but the fight wasn't over yet. The Council's last line of defense, their flagship's core, was still operational. If they couldn't destroy it, the Council would remain a threat, and Earth's victory would be short-lived. "Move, move, move," Kane shouted, his voice sharp with urgency. The team split into two groups, one to plant the final charges, the other to provide cover. The AI was growing desperate, trying to regain control of its failing systems, but the humanoids were relentless. The tide was turning in humanity's favor, but the risk was still immense. Kane's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the timer counting down. This is it. We either end this now or risk extinction. The weight of his words wasn't lost on anyone. If they failed, Earth would be lost, and humanity would never have a chance to fight back again. The countdown on the device grew shorter. As the final charge was planted, Kane's team retreated, moving quickly to the designated extraction point. The ship's control systems were crumbling, and the flagship was starting to fall apart. The blast would destroy the Council's ability to control their entire fleet, and that would give humanity the chance they needed to turn the tide of the war. The last few moments were a blur of smoke, flashing lights, and explosions as the flagship's core detonated. The shockwave sent tremors through the flagship, and the hum of the ship's systems slowly died out. Earth had struck a decisive blow. But even as the team made their escape, the battle was far from over. The Council's remaining forces were still a massive threat, and Earth's victory in this infiltration was only a small part of the larger war. However, Commander Kane knew that this mission would go down in history as the turning point. Earth had shown the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. The Council had made a grave mistake, and now humanity was ready to rise. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about victory, and humanity had proven that they were more than capable of achieving it. The final battle had raged on for what felt like an eternity. Earth's forces, battered but not broken, had fought with everything they had, and now, as the dust began to settle, the full weight of their victory hit. The Galactic Council's once unyielding fleet had collapsed. Their ships, which had once struck fear into the hearts of every corner of the galaxy, now drifted aimlessly in space, crippled and lifeless. The empire that had terrorized countless civilizations had shattered. Its leaders scattered, their dreams of dominance reduced to nothing more than ruins in the void. For the humans, it was the ultimate underdog victory. They had started as an insignificant species, surrounded by more powerful, technologically advanced empires. Earth had been on the brink of annihilation, with the overwhelming force of the Council bearing down on them. But now, after countless battles, sacrifices, and a relentless spirit, they had proven that no force in the universe was strong enough to break the human will. As the Council's ships fell one by one, Commander Kane stood tall on Earth's command center, watching the destruction unfold. His mind was focused, his eyes sharp, but deep down, a sense of disbelief started to settle in. They had done it. Against all odds, humanity had achieved what no one thought possible. Earth was no longer a colony to be controlled. It was a power to be reckoned with. The leaders of Earth gathered to address the world. They had won the war, yes, But the real victory was the dawn of a new era. Earth was now on the map as a galactic power, a force to be respected. The leaders knew that this moment marked the beginning of something extraordinary. Humanity's place in the universe had been secured. The rest of the galaxy would never again look at Earth as a helpless, defenseless planet. They had proven themselves, not just in battle, but in spirit. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with.